This is the February meeting of the Valley Community Policing Council, and this month we're discussing when police can arrest people and when police can't. That sounds very simplistic, I know, but it really does kind of work out that way. There are times when the police truly can't arrest someone, and much as we may want them to, and there are times when police can arrest someone even if we might not want them to. But before we start, we need to, do we have a quorum? There's 3 of us out of 7.
Yeah, not quite a majority.
Not quite a majority yet. So we can't do any of the voting to the meeting to start or anything. I don't know where everybody else is. Oh, Mr. Jameson's here. So did he get on as an attendee, Kelly?
Let's see. Let's see how this works. Okay. Okay. All right, continue. I'll figure it out.
Okay, so we actually do have Mr. Jameson, who's our 4th member, which does give us a quorum, but currently it's a silent quorum, so I don't know if that's exactly appropriate. But let's start by bringing the meeting to order. And Phil, if you can just type yourself in for now, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but let's bring the meeting to order. Do I have a vote to bring the meeting to order?
Aye.
Do I have a second? And all those in favor, including Phil?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, there you are. Super. So we have no old business at this point, but we do have some new business. Commander Norris, you asked us to look into making a recommendation.
Yes,
And can you jog my memory about what it was?
it was reference possibly exploring the possibility of hiring a civilian position for each area command to help us promote what we're doing via social media.
So a social media specialist.
Basically, yeah, social media specialist that can help us, each area command, push out news over various social media platforms. Somebody who's well-versed in doing things like that.
Okay. We'll
Almost
work
kind
on
of
that.
like a public information officer for each area command.
Okay. So we'll work on that, run it by the next meeting and submit it soon after. And then we have a lot of new members. As a matter of fact, we have 5 new members. There are only 3 of them here tonight. And we've never really introduced our new members, even though Dick has been at the meetings for forever. And you too, Tom, but you've never had a chance to introduce yourselves. And then Phil, if you want to introduce yourself also.
Okay, well, I'm Tom O'Keefe. I've been on the council for probably 2 full years now, close to it anyway. And
With us? 2 full years?
I think so.
I've never introduced you.
Well, I'm not sure that I have or haven't. I have in some meetings, but maybe not in the public meeting. We moved to Albuquerque 3 years ago, although I lived here in the early 50s. I've seen a few changes in the last 70 years between then and now. We live in the North Valley, and we moved here because we have two of our children and their children living here as well. We wanted to be near our kids and grandkids, and we're enjoying that. I also have 2 kittens who have a lot of energy. So Rowan, I know you can relate, but I'm there's a kitten climbing the screen right now behind me. I'll probably step out of the video from time to time, but that's my introduction for now.
I'm Dick Winterbottom. I live downtown, and I don't know. I've been on the CPC about maybe 10 months or so, and I'm interested in the progress of CASA, or the lack of progress in CASA, to be more accurate, and just general law enforcement issues. And I'm happy. The last 10 months have proven the most interesting and I think valuable thing has been the response of ABD to our meetings. The commanders, Commander Norris, as well as the commanders that preceded them, and the lieutenants have been so forthcoming, and it's been an opportunity to begin a real dialogue where we can differ on our opinions but talk to each other, and that's been really valuable. And I think it's been, if that can expand to a community dialogue, not just the CPC, that would be an incredible advance, and it would make the process worthwhile alone.
And Phil.
I'm Phil Jameson. I lived in Albuquerque for 29 years, and I've lived in the North Valley for 26. I live right off of Matthew and 12th. Since Tom got to talk about his cats, I'm a dog person. So anybody who lives in that area who walks their dogs regularly probably has seen me, and I'd be happy to hear anybody's thoughts.
We may change to dog people.
Okay. You know, with what's going on here since CASA, I just joined in part because I wanted to have more dialogue with local police, and I think it's important that basically we support them, and we have a nice frank discussion with them about issues. And I'd also like to get through the CASA and find out what we need to do to actually make the process work.
Okay, and Edwina and I, you know, we've been doing this Valley Community Council for, I don't even want to think how many years, Edwina, and we need more members, and we need me ousted. I've been chair for a long time, co-chair for a long time. I need a coup. I need to be thrown out. I'd be happy to be thrown out. Actually, given what's happening right now in the world, that is a totally awful thing to be talking about. Let me let Mr. Jones introduce himself, and then I have some questions that I need to ask to set us off. But Mr. Jones, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, good afternoon. And which council is this again? This is the
Valley.
Valley, okay, Valley CPC.
Don't tell him, make him guess, make him run through them all.
Well, folks, my name is Barron Jones. I'm the senior policy strategist at the ACLU of New Mexico. And the ACLU of New Mexico is a member of APD4, a community organization specifically and strictly designed around ensuring and overseeing and monitoring the city's progress with compliance with the 2014 U.S. Department of Justice, City of Albuquerque court-approved settlement. And prior to that, you know, I maybe tell you all a little bit more real briefly. And prior to this work, you know, this work is very near and dear to me. I worked as a newspaper reporter throughout the state and was fortunate enough to really do some reporting around policing and social justice issues, and myself have experienced those issues firsthand. So this work is really near and dear to me, and I'm happy to be here and able to talk about it.
Thank you. The reason I chose this topic tonight is because at an ECHO meeting last month, one of the questions that was being asked was about an incident that happened downtown where a gentleman experiencing homelessness pushed another gentleman over the business owner, and he'd also broken the business owner's window. And yet when the police came, they couldn't arrest the gentleman in question, the one that had done the pushing, because they said they hadn't witnessed the incident, and so they couldn't do it. And that really piqued my curiosity, and I realized a lot of people probably feel a lot of frustration when they come across incidents like that. I mean, I know of a case where a gentleman was riding along the street screaming at the top of his lungs in a neighborhood, and they called the police, and the police came. And the gentleman was riding on the street screaming on the top of his lungs. There wasn't much anybody could do, but there was some real indignation about the arrest not taking place. And also on the other side, Commander Norris, you gave us an incident recently where someone had leapt into a car that was warming up, and you asked the owner if you wanted to press charges, and the owner said no, and then couldn't understand why you weren't about to arrest the perpetrator. So it's things like that don't make sense to us when we see people getting arrested or not getting arrested, that we need clarified. And I guess one other question that I have, and then Dick, is that was John Boyd actually doing anything illegal? I mean, was he? I mean, he was in the parks, he was after hours, but was his arrest, I'm not going into what happened afterwards, but was his potential arrest justified?
Are you asking me, Rowan?
I'm asking that generally, I think. I'm asking, I guess I'm asking Mr. Jones, and I'm asking you, and I'm asking Dick. Dick, I know you had your hand out. It's just something to think about. How does it work? How does the whole system work? And I got sent some paperwork about the statute, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Jones, but I'm looking at the Criminal Procedure Act 31(1) 1 through 7. And that's where I'm seeing the references to arrests and misdemeanors where there's no witnesses to, if the police aren't there, then it can't happen.
Yeah, I guess first I would have to, say that and I think Dick had his hand up, so I'll let Dick talk, and then I'll jump in, because I will need his help in this as a non-lawyer. But I do have some responses to some of the questions that
Okay.
you put out. So before I start, I'll let Mr. Winterman speak.
There you go.
Well, I missed that. Did
You missed my Mr. Jones just handed on to you.
Oh, he is. He's
Yeah.
calling me out.
No, we don't. I thought you had your hand up.
Well, I think there's two questions. First, do we want to arrest misdemeanors? And secondly, if we do, in what circumstance things can we arrest them? I take issue with the person who said that you can't arrest a misdemeanor unless the police officer witnesses the offense. The state Supreme Court has spoken to that, and it's indicated, I think, in an opinion that is footnoted in the police memorandum, but not discussed. It's been years since I've read cases seriously, but it was a situation, and I won't go into it. I hope too in depth, but the fellow, the police are called to a fellow who's shoplifting in a gun store or a sports store, and they don't witness the arrest, and they detain the fellow and arrest him and search him incident to the arrest and find heroin. And the Supreme Court says, hey, if there's exigent circumstances, and they define that very broadly, an exigency means a situation where an emergency situation which requires swift action to prevent danger to life or property or the escape of the suspect. You can arrest them even though you don't see the crime. And that's pretty good Supreme Court law. It's dicta in a way, but it's pretty good.
But I was gonna say, because I'm gonna need that. I'm gonna need you to support me with that, Dick. So if I can ask you to hold on to that, because I think I'm gonna need your legal knowledge to support me with that.
I'm happy to cut out and listen because I learn more from
Let's
listening.
talk the generalities, right? But I was gonna say, I would like to first start by saying that, statements made like we didn't witness the person and couldn't arrest them is sort of highly politicized. And what's happening right now, there's a reality going on in Albuquerque. I think all of us see it when we drive down the streets at night or turn on the news, that there is an increase in certain crimes, right? And these consent decrees that were in the McClendon consent decree and the court-approved settlement decree, court-approved settlement agreement are being highly politicized, right? So when officers are making statements like that, that's what we're hearing right now. And because Ron, you started off by saying that there's instances where people can and can't arrest people, and that's just like Mr. Winterbottom said, that's totally nonsense, right?
Is it? I'm sorry.
Yes, it's nonsense. Officers will have their discretion. Their discretion usually always reigns supreme, right? In certain instances. So if officers feel like a person needs to be arrested, they will be arrested and put to the system. So we need to really sort of push back on that rhetoric, right? We just finished the legislative session, 30 days, and that was a common thread amongst our elected officials in Santa Fe. Well, the police in Albuquerque's hands are tied, right? Well, and this is not a manifestation of the 2014 court-approved settlement agreement. This lack of this course of arrest dates back nearly 30 years to a lawsuit involving overcrowding at the jail, right? And one of the reasons why the jail was overcrowded was APD, and it was known, I'm not casting any aspersions, we're sweeping up undesirable people, right? And I'm sure many of you all live in the Valley Area Command, probably would like to see some of that today. I mean, I drive down there and I'm tripping out on what I see these days, right? But that's another thing. And that speaks to the city, the county, and the state's neglect of people, right? I mean, and lack of providing services, right? So I just want to get that cleared off. And so in 1995, that court-approved settlement, that McClendon case was filed by a gentleman named Jimmy McClendon, who was in jail with mental health issues, and the jail at the time held about 900 people when it was built for 550, right? And so that sort of set off a process to work and see what, not only if the city and county officials can work to reduce the jail population, they're also charged with finding meaningful alternatives to arrest and implement several other alternatives to incarceration that would reduce the jail population at the time. And also in that court order, and as once again, I'm not a lawyer. Actually, I've been one of those people, and I was a McLennan subclass member housed at Bernalillo County Detention Center. Full disclosure, spent about 12 years in prisons and jails throughout the state. So I know the work inside and out. And so what happened is that we noticed that, and the monitors who oversee the McLennan settlement noticed that while the city and the county at the time were making progress, they still were over the desired cap, right? And so the McLennan settlement urges and requires the city of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, and any other arresting agency operating inside Bernalillo County to find, to cite people when they can. But that is not a shall, right? That means an officer, if Barron Jones is doing X, Y, and Z, they can, give me a citation. But if the officer sees some reason to arrest me, as I mentioned, that's his discretion, his or her discretion. And if they put that in their police report, 9 times out of 10 is going to stick. So I just want to get to the political nature of the statements we're hearing sometime, right? And so if I pivot over to the Albuquerque really quickly to the Department of Justice, settlement agreement, right? There's been 14 monitoring reports since 2017, right? And APD4 really sort of sprung in and jailed into action following the death of James Boyd, right? And I want to say right now, while I'm not a lawyer, I'm definitely not a police officer. The law enforcement community had no reason to bug James Boyd. He was on public land, camping on public land, right? What he was doing was, what the police were doing was maintaining, I don't mean to sound French or anything, but capitalism, right? We had neighbors who didn't like the appearance of James Boyd living in their backyard, camping in their backyard, so they called the police, right? The same thing about the gentleman, and I'm talking loud, I'm sorry, because I have a really crappy thing here, but the same thing with the gentleman driving down the street on his bicycle, shouting to the top of his lungs. That person doesn't belong in jail, so it's a waste of resources. While it's not pleasant, but sometimes in life we have to deal with unpleasant things. So, but when you look at it, 7 years into the court-approved settlement agreement, we're still running up into situations where policing is an improvement in the state. So I've talked for a minute, so I better be quiet.
I just want to say that I wasn't saying about the gentleman riding the bike that he needed to be arrested. I was saying that was an incident where the police could not make the arrest. And there is a specific statute about misdemeanor arrests when you can't see someone, and it's not huge, terrible things. Can you address that, Commander Norris? I do apologize if I'm putting you on the spot.
No, you're not. There's just kind of been a lot said. What exactly do you want me to address? And I will address it as best as I can.
It's a statute about misdemeanors, the incident that happened a couple of weeks ago in the downtown area where your officers didn't make an arrest because they didn't see the incident itself.
Sure. So what that was based off is we had 2 misdemeanor crimes that occurred outside of our presence. Now, the 2 misdemeanor crimes that the 2 misdemeanor crimes that did occur are not on, I guess for lack of a better term, the list of misdemeanors that we can arrest for that occur outside of our presence. Okay, those misdemeanors are some domestic violence acts, leaving the scene of an accident, and these are just to name a few. I won't go through the entire list. Leaving the scene of an accident, shoplifting, DWI. If we've established, enough probable cause that it occurred, we can make that arrest. And then there are some others. These 2 in particular had to deal with criminal damage to property and simple assault. And those occurred outside of our presence. That doesn't mean that we cannot take enforcement action. If we can establish, right. So if we can establish probable cause that, in fact, the facts leading up to what we've ascertained up to that point, the facts led to this person, committing those 2 crimes, we can take enforcement action in lieu of arrest or outside of arrest, writing a criminal summons writing a misdemeanor citation, but making an actual physical arrest to where we take that person to jail, those types of misdemeanor crimes that occur outside of our presence, by statute, we cannot make arrests on those.
Okay, that's what I was going for. I mean, I just wanted us to distinguish, and also I want to reiterate about how if you have a crime happening in your house, if you're a victim of a theft, if the police do come, and if the police ask you specifically if you want to press charges, and you say no, that person is not going to get arrested. Is that right?
It makes things very difficult for us, because what happens is when we arrest that person, and we can still make that arrest, we can, if it's a felony crime and the person does not want to prosecute, technically, I believe we still can make that arrest. Where it becomes problematic is that person is going to go to jail. That's probably the most jail time that they would ever see, whether it be a couple hours, whether it be ROR'd. And when it comes to prosecuting that person, the person doesn't get prosecuted. So for lack of a better term, I don't want to be crass, but is the juice worth the squeeze? In some instances, I think that it is, because I think that prevents future calls for service, at least calls for service for that day, or possibly that person victimizing somebody else. And that's what we want to deter and we want to prevent from happening. But it just becomes problematic when it comes to prosecuting an individual if the victim of the crime it does not want to participate in a prospective successful prosecution of that person.
Okay, that was just one of the things that caught my attention. Is that in the scheme of arrests and no arrests, I mean, it just hadn't, when I heard Detective Conor describe the statute and how it worked and how difficult it was therefore to make the arrest if it hadn't happened when the police hadn't witnessed it, I was just very intrigued by that, and it made me reassess and reshuffle my view of arrests. I mean, until I got involved with the CPC, I had a very simple view.
Sure.
You've seen somebody do something wrong, you call the police,
right,
you get arrested.
And I can see some of the rationale behind that, but I think it's important for everybody here on the meeting to understand that's also very frustrating for us as officers, because I can tell you one of the hardest things to deal with as a police officer is when somebody calls you for help, and sometimes your hands are kind of tied as to what you can actually do to help them relative to what they want the end goal to be. And it's frustrating for us, because that's why everybody signs up to do this job is to help people. At least I hope that's why everybody signs up to do this job. But it gets frustrating for us, but I can also see the other side of that when it comes to not making those arrests on misdemeanor crimes that occur outside of our presence. One thing that I will not, that I have a difficult time tolerating is when we have enough probable cause to take some sort of enforcement action on that person, and that enforcement action is not taken. Like I was alluding to earlier, as criminal summons, misdemeanor citations, things like that. And we're only speaking about misdemeanors. Felonies are a little different. We can make felony arrests that occur outside of our presence if we establish probable cause to make that arrest.
It was mainly misdemeanors. I knew that it was about misdemeanors and misdemeanors only. Dick, did you have something to say?
Me?
Dick, did you not have something to say? I thought I saw your hand go up. You muted.
No, I didn't really have anything to say. I mean, I disagree with the police department's reading of the law. I think you can make misdemeanor arrests that don't happen in your presence, provided you have some exigency. And I think the Supreme Court has spoken to that. But that, regardless of that, I think the larger question is, do you want to?
Right.
And Mr. Jones speaks of the jail lawsuit and the overcrowding and the fact that we're spending lots of money and lots of energy incarcerating people prior to their trial for misdemeanors. And that's might not be something that we want to do indiscriminately. And also when you're talking about misdemeanors, they fall upon the poorest, most vulnerable people in society, the homeless, people who are disenfranchised, people of color. And we've got to be very careful as a society whether we want to enforce the law in its minutest form for people when the law is we know is unequally enforced, and it's expensive.
Right.
We've got to incarcerate them. We've got to try them. We've got, as Commander Norris says, for relatively minor offenses, the victim doesn't show up. The cop shows up. He's paid overtime or he's inconvenienced. And it's a very expensive process, and it clogs the courts. And we've got to understand as citizens, we don't call the police when we're inconvenienced.
Right.
We call the police when we are victimized. And there's a difference between that. And if somebody is drag racing or driving down the street on a bicycle yelling, we're inconvenienced.
Right.
That shouldn't be a police matter.
Yeah.
There's more important things. If the world was absent of crime, we could put police to that, but we can't.
I know, I've got a couple of things to say to that. The one thing that concerns me is the other way around. Supposing I see a gentleman pushing over someone experiencing homelessness, and I call the police, and that person can't be arrested. He's getting a message, that person who did pushing, that it's okay for me to take this, to harm this population. Nothing can happen to me. Am I wrong? I'm sorry. That was just the way that I saw it. That was my perception.
And while I'm not, I definitely wouldn't want to, because I don't really, I understand what Commander Norris does, but I'm in no position to debate any points, right? But to your point, Ron, is that you saw the person, right? And I think that's grounds. You tell the officer I saw them push him over, and the person get arrested, right? But I also want to sort of highlight before, because Mr. Jameson has his hand up, is that our jails are horrible conditionings right now, right? I mean, they're absolutely horrible conditions. Maybe a couple months ago, a person was beat to death for over an hour, right? You know what I mean? Can you imagine the pain, the violence that must take place, and for someone to be beat to death for over an hour, right? Wow. And our jails, because our jails are so understaffed right now. So, I understand, and I really want to piggyback off Mr. Winter Dick's statement about, we just have to be mindful of what we do. And I think, it's time for us to start being a bit more creative as a society on how we address these issues, right? Like I mentioned, I tell folks all the time, I do this work, and not only that, I witnessed my older brother murdered, right? I've been carjacked. And if you look at me close, I have a split lip and a big old gash in my head by being hit with pistols. So I've been a victim of violence, right? But I've also jumped out of a trash can right before it was dumped by the garbage man. True story, right? And so what I'm saying is I'm just saying that we have to be a little bit more of a creative of how we deal with these issues in our society, and unfortunately, we're actually setting our law enforcement community up for failure, right? When we're tasking our law enforcement officials to address addiction issues, we're asking them to address people living with mental health issues and unhoused, right? And that sort of creates a toll, right for them in their job. And maybe, we're asking them too much, and that's why we're having such a hard time keeping the number of law enforcement officers on the payroll, right? Because we're really burdening our law enforcement community with just responsibilities that they shouldn't be dealing with, right? And I think what happens is, I was going to steal someone's old adage, but if you treat everything with a hammer, you're just going to bash it in. But I'm doing it no justice, right? But I just think overall that we just have to rethink how we do things, and also be cognizant of the political nature of things, right? And I really want to emphasize that we came right out of a mayoral cycle, right? And unfortunately, the city of Albuquerque did see a sharp increase of homicides this year, right? And other violent crimes, right? We do see folks, like I said, I can't drive by a convenience store without seeing it with panels of wood on it, right? Which is telling me something is going on. But if we're trying to address these same issues with the same old failed policies, and we just seen 30 days of that, right? 30 days of lawmakers trying to take the years back 20 years to address problems these days. And that's just my point, and I think it's not my point of view, there's evidence to back that up, that we're, when we work to institute more, lengthening jail sentences, that may arrest crime for a minute or abate crime for very brief periods because that individual is in custody. But overall, it doesn't really do anything to make our community safer. What do is like providing, safe housing for people, providing jobs for people, building up the mental health infrastructure that was destroyed 13 years ago and no one has done anything about it. Those are the things that we need to do to address these issues, right? But I want to say that when I say these things, it's not in any way working to disparage our law enforcement communities. We need our law enforcement folks, right? We just need to narrow their focus, reduce their role, and tailor it to where it's needed. And I'll shut up now. Excuse me.
No, this is your show. You're invited specifically to address this issue and to educate, because my view was very, very naive and very simplistic. I thought, oh, okay, police can't address it.
I don't know. I
You
just
can do it sometimes and they can't do it other times. I was just very, it intrigued me so much. I just thought other people would find it interesting that I was just. So I was just being very simple-minded.
I'm embarrassed to say that I wish they had a lot of this no arrest stuff when I was being arrested all the time. Like, they always locked me up. Like, I hear now that you have a window downtown where you can go pay bail before you go. Where was that stuff when I was going back and forth to jail, right? So I appreciate the efforts, but the arrest thing, it really sort of sits squarely on the McLennan settlement agreement, right? And the city of Albuquerque, while it's a jail overcrowding and conditions of confinement case, the Bernalillo County took over the jail in 2006, and the city of Albuquerque is like, hey, we don't have to deal with this anymore, right? We don't run the jail, right? And the court is like, no, you need to stay put, because you play a key role on who goes to jail and why. And that's why we're dealing with this today, right? And I have to say, like I said, I'm not I'm not in county government. I'm not in city government. I don't pay attention to their budgets, right? So, I have to be very careful at my critiques of it. But I know from history, from my historical understanding of things, is that many of these things are often, they try for a minute, right? And then they're like, we just go back to arresting people, right? And I'm not saying that that's by design. I don't know I'm not assigning any motives to people, but if we really work to, the courts, I have to say this, is that with all these settlement agreements, the court-approved settlement agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice, specifically dealing with APD, and the McClendon settlement dealing with the jail, these settlements aren't reached upon arbitrarily. They're set down, right? And they're set down when the U.S. DOJ the consent decree, it's a court-approved settlement agreement. So that means every party to that agreement had to sit down and agree, right? And so not everyone's pushing back on things that they agreed upon, right? And that's what that's being lost in the public sphere, right? We're hearing, right, a lot in the city that the crime, the consent decree is making it difficult to fight crime. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's not either or. It's not a dichotomy. It's not, either you implement constitutional policing practices that don't violate individuals' Fourth Amendment rights, or you fight crime. It's not either or, right? And I think that it's incumbent on us as a community to figure out ways to do both, right? And I think we can. And I think one of the ways we can do it is start by just sort of really tailoring that role of our law enforcement community. Do more things like the groundbreaking community, whatever said community, what's this called? Community, you all know what I'm talking about, the new department, right?
Oh, the community, I can never remember. It's CSA, isn't it?
ACS, Albuquerque Community Safety Department.
Yeah. Yeah, we do some more things like that, but I just want to say that, especially the Commander Norris, when I say these things, it's not nearly in any way disparaging law enforcement. It's just wanting to see everyone get a break. Everyone get a break that improve our public safety altogether. I get nervous.
I think it's really important because I think there may be some confusion. We need to make a distinction between what McClendon says and what statute says as it relates to us not being able to arrest for misdemeanor crimes. McClendon has nothing to do with us not being able to make an arrest on misdemeanor crimes. They're two different things. One is, misdemeanor crimes that occur outside of our presence that we cannot arrest for, but we can still take enforcement action for. McClendon has to do with nonviolent misdemeanor crimes that occur in our presence and alternatives that we can exercise relative to the totality of circumstances, alternatives that we can exercise, options that we can exercise in the way of enforcement action. So I think that a distinction needs to be made, or at least needs to be understood, that we're talking two different subjects here. McClendon and arrestable powers for misdemeanor crimes that occur outside of our presence.
And Commander, are you referring to a city SOP, right? A city ordinance, or state statute?
State statute.
State statute.
So I just want to make sure that we made that distinction, because I think both of them were kind of getting those lines were getting blurred, and I want everybody on the panel or anybody else who's listening to understand that they're two different.
Yeah.
They're two different things. Does that make sense? One does not kind of have to do with the other. This has been in effect since I came on the department 20 years ago, not McClendon arresting for misdemeanor crimes that occurred outside of our presence. McClendon obviously is something that is relatively recent that has to do with misdemeanor crimes. But there's a distinction between the two and a difference between the two. I just think it's important that we understand that so we can stay on topic.
Yeah, that's my fault. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Run away,
It's
but
okay.
I was
I
just
know
really
that. I think Mary Ann, and I know I'm not the DJ, Rowan. I think that Mary Ann Dickinson had a question that she wanted to ask, reference an example that you had mentioned earlier in the conversation.
Okay, so Marianne, how do police officers judge whether a person is disturbing the peace or disorderly conduct, is acting out because of mental illness or drug reactions? Is there an option to jailing them?
Yes, there is an option to jailing them, and that's something that we have, in our SOPs. That if somebody's mental health status, behavioral health status is contributing to or a cause of the crime that is actually occurring, then we are encouraged to look for that other alternative outside of jail to actually address the problem and get the person the help that they need. Now, in terms of how do we judge that, that comes down to the CIT training that we have, the experience that we have, and being able to look at what we're dealing with a very wide lens and look at those contributing factors and make a decision on what the best solution to that problem is going to be for that particular situation that we're facing.
Does that answer your question, Marion? Actually, it's more expeditious, guys. I know we have a Q&A and it's confusing, but it's better if you ask your questions in the chat because they're more visible to everybody and it just works a bit better. So I do apologize for that confusion. Phil.
Yeah, just a comment. I don't, Commander Norris, I don't get the image from the way you're describing this that you feel hamstrung by this statute in how you can interact with the public. And I'm wondering if that's true and if you think the officer on the beat is totally fine with this limitation.
Well, when I say hamstrung is when we get on scene and we establish, we've gathered the facts, done a thorough investigation, and based off of everything that we've come up with in that best investigation, we, I guess, essentially know that that person committed the crime, and the victim that's reporting the crime or the witness that's reporting the crime, we believe everything they're saying and everything is coming together, basically telling us, yes, that person committed that crime. That's where we get frustrated when some of the enforcement options are limited for us in the way of a summons or a misdemeanor crime, when we know that, okay, yes, this was a simple battery, it was a simple assault. We did not witness it. However, this person has shown a propensity for violence, and cutting this person a summons or a citation and sending them on their way, we don't necessarily know if that, me personally, I don't feel that that's going to give the caller, the victim, the witness, that safe feeling that this person is not going to come back and commit the exact same crime, even worse. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just want it, that helps the flavor of your answer.
Yeah.
But the other side to the gentleman riding the bicycle screaming down the street is that my feeling is that why should he be arrested? I mean, he
can't be arrested. There's no,
yeah, exactly.
What crime is he committing?
What crime? He's
we don't even have really too much of a legal justification to be contacting that person. He's not breaking any laws. If we're going to be contacting somebody who's experiencing a situation like that, it would be for the sole reason of seeing if that person needs help and if we can get them a resource to address whatever is causing their behavior. But in terms of any type of enforcement action, I mean, depending on what the situation is, yeah, do we have disorderly conduct? Maybe, I don't know, right? I mean, but to me, there's not, the main function that we would be serving and the purpose that would be serving is trying to find that person help. And jail is not going to provide that person what they need. It's going to provide the caller with the warm and fuzzy feeling that, okay, they're no longer an annoyance. Good, cops did their job. Well, no, the cops didn't do their job because we didn't find that person that resource that they needed.
Well, that was one of the other reasons I wanted to bring this up, because community members, and I've said this before during this meeting, community members just want simple, straightforward solutions. Somebody's screaming down my street, I want the police to come and I want them to arrest him. And I chose the topic tonight to say it's not that simple and people have rights. I mean, the gentleman screaming down the street has every right to be screaming down the street, as long as it's not midnight. Then I guess you get him on a noise ordinance, which
it's not going to meet the elements of a noise ordinance.
Not going to meet the elements of a noise ordinance. So
unless he just has like the loudest voice that has ever donned the face of man and can break windows.
I think really, and it goes back to the legislative session. At the onset of the legislative session, there was a push to spend $100 million on policing, right? And I think, you know, it just goes back to how we invest in our communities. And I think, you know, while it's great to give retention bonuses and hire more law enforcement officers, I think, you know, I think one of the things Commander Norris and his folks run up against is that there's no resources to direct these people to because we're not investing in them, right? I think the conversation should sort of route to that. You know, James Boyd had interacted with mental health, behavioral health individuals forever throughout Albuquerque, right? And we didn't have the resources in place for that person to get the treatment that they needed. I think that's what we should be talking about, and we should push our elected officials to invest in mental health treatment, to invest in job training and housing for individuals, and we'll see as a society a reduced role, but working hard and really, you know, using all the political capital in the world to pass 1994 crime era type bills is not going to do our society any good and our community any good. And regardless, there's a body of evidence that shows, yeah, while there may be, there will be probably increases in public safety with increased police presence, all the other what do you call that, collateral effects sort of outweighs that. So we just have to start investing in our community and get the people the help they need. And I think I'm preaching to the choir when I say that.
Ms. Dickinson has said something perfect, that it seems to her, and I fully agree, that there are members of the public that need education on what the police can and should do and appropriate expectations out there, which was the main thrust of this meeting, very much the main thrust.
You should have invested in that campaign instead of the Get Out of the Casa campaign.
No, I know Miss Dickinson. This is definitely not what Miss Dickinson's saying.
No.
I don't know what I'm saying either. No, this isn't part of the Get Out of the Casa campaign by any means.
No, that was me. A while back, there was a $70,000 campaign aimed at pressuring people to get out of what you can't do because it's a court agreement. So it's
right.
You can't do it. But maybe we need to run campaigns like that to teach the public when and when they shouldn't call the police, because it's a drain on resources.
No, Miss Dickinson is alluding to exactly what I'm trying to get to here, is that I suppose it behooves us not to call if we're going to call the police about something that is, forgive us, because somebody who gets knocked over and gets their window broken, if a business person gets knocked over and has their property destroyed, for them that's tantamount, that's not key. It doesn't seem petty to them, but they call the police and they know. I mean, most people should know by now that they're going to have a really long wait before the police can come, because they're going to be low on the priority system. And then when the police do come, they're going to have that added frustration of saying, I didn't witness it. I'm reading it as statute as part of the Criminal Procedure Act. If you can correct me, it's 31-1-1 through 31-1-7. That's where I'm seeing the language, and it's just that to that person, it's a huge deal. It's massive. My window's been broken. I've been knocked down. So it's very difficult to hear that. So that's one of the reasons that I thought this meeting would help people to know that sometimes you don't get your wish coming true. You want these people arrested and they're not going to get arrested. And there are reasons why they're not going to arrest it. And it's also for people's rights. You know, I'm babbling a little bit, but I hope I'm making some kind of sense, because this is really important to me. I'm not saying let's get them all and put them in jail. I'm saying let's think about this. Let's be logical. Let's figure it out. If I see someone, if I'm out in the street and I see someone getting arrested and I don't know why, and it doesn't seem like a justifiable reason, I'm not going to go to the officer and ask for an explanation. But sometimes people's arrests seem unjust. So it's a two-way thing. And I'm sorry if I didn't make any sense at all. But Dick, can you make some sense out of me for me?
Well, give me the statute number again. I'm gonna look it up.
I could be wrong. It's part of the Criminal Procedure Act,
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
it's 31-11, and it seems to be through 31 dash.
I'm dropping it
17.
in the chat. I'll drop it in the chat. It's in the chat.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. So I had it right, and I had it in the right place.
I have to say, I'm in no shape to debate, laws. I wasn't prepared. I just want to simply talk about, our take from an APD4
Right,
stance,
right.
ACLU stance, is that we just really need to invest more and just really educate the public on when to call police, because we see time and time again, it's oftentimes these low level mental health calls and things like that result in people being harmed. So I think that we really just have to just sort of do things different and encourage our city leaders to, maybe invest more into the community safety department, right? And make that a viable option in the city of Albuquerque. And then we more likely will see improvements, because we've seen it in other places. And that's my party line, is that, reduce the role of police, bring about constitutional policing, and reduce the instances where individuals' Fourth Amendment rights are being violated. And we'll do it.
Maria Wolf, an attendee, also brings up the point of restorative justice. I'm not quite sure how it fits in, but it would be a perfect counterpart thing to have going on.
Well, and I think we see the city of Albuquerque has a really successful violence intervention program, for what I understand,
Yes.
right? And I think that is a part of restorative justice, right? One day last week, not too far from you, a couple months ago, I was listening to the news, and it was one day, one person shot on 63rd Street, right? A day later, two people shot on 62nd, right? And this went on, and you can tell, right, that these instances, I'm not a police officer, I did not investigate them, but my mind tells me is that one person got shot and the others are retaliating. So what the violence intervention program does is, when maybe a person gets shot or jumped, and if the police get wind of it, they go out to that individual's office with the individual who has been through the system, who understand, and they have a conversation with that dude, and they're finding that these conversations are reducing violence. So there's things like that we can do in our city, especially amongst young people. And yeah, restorative justice, yeah, we do need to be more part of that. And I think overall that could lead to fewer crimes being committed in our communities, right? Because people, it's a reflective tool, and I think that could be very beneficial. So the city's doing some good stuff to get at this stuff, and they just passed a big old bill, and they're putting more money into it to expand in Albuquerque and take it to other parts of the state.
Hey, Rowan, just to kind of, and Dick, so you don't do too much research, the statute that you were referring to, Rowan,
Yeah.
that's talking about the domestic violence arrest statute, which is one of the handful that permits arrest without warrant, like shoplifting, DWI, et cetera. So I just, to save people the
but it also applies. There's some other parts of it. I think I know what you mean, but I couldn't find. The Detective Conor sent us some language around the arrest without misdemeanor, but he didn't specify the statute. And the closest I could find is statute 31-17A was the one being alluded to the most.
Right, and that allows
That's a domestic
police
violence.
officer to arrest for domestic violence that doesn't occur in his or her presence.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't prohibit other arrests for misdemeanors.
Okay.
So but if as Commander Norris says, if there is a policy that you don't arrest for misdemeanors, that it don't occur in your presence, aside from certain exceptions like domestic violence or like DWI, well, that bothers the police department, then you should go to the DA and seek to change it. I mean, I think the Supreme Court is at a minimum open to that proposition, and at maybe worse or best, it's not the law. But what Barron's talking about, and I think what Commander Norris is talking about, is a policy decision. Should we do those things? And that seems to me maybe the more important question.
Yeah. I think that is the most important. And I just say one thing in mind while we're talking about the arrest. Our jail can't take any more people. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's that crisis point. It's that crisis point. Not only that they're dealing with outbreaks of COVID, severe staffing shortages. I think 12 officers walked off, and I say this from as a member, as a board member to the Detention Facility Management Oversight Board. The staffing shortages alone, right? You have one officer, keeping watch over 120 individuals, right? And that's how people get beat to death in jail, right? And so I think we need to consider that as we talk. And I think one thing we're learning, right? The city of Albuquerque, Las Cruces, Rio Rancho, Farmington, have all instituted pretty hefty bonuses to attract and recruit more police officers. And those bonuses aren't luring people to the job, right? So I think it's time, and folks say it's the rhetoric around defund and all this other stuff. Whatever the reason be, is that it's just time for us to start really reimagining policing and public safety and be a little bit more laser focused on how we do things. But I would want to emphasize that to folks on the job, going to jail for a misdemeanor citation or inability shouldn't result in your death, and we've seen that happen in recent months. Not only in Albuquerque, but in Las Vegas, New Mexico jail, and other just sort of unrestrained acts of violence in these places, right? And we need to consider that when we talk about arresting and locking up people, and also keeping in mind, especially arresting people, there's no really outcome for them to, if there's no rehabilitative process tied to this arrest, that person is going to come out of jail probably worse off than they went in, right? And that's not going to help our community and increase public safety. So I know, I'm listening to myself and I'm thinking, well, damn, what's the solution? I'll come back with those. Right? But I think
we'll ask you back when you have the solutions. We'll definitely ask you back. Just let us know.
Well, I spoke of a couple of them, right? Investing in our mental health services, right? We know that in 2012, who's ever been in the state, the former governor accused everyone of stealing and fraud, right? And kicked them all out. And today we haven't recovered. And when you legislative committee hearing and they're talking about this, and they talk about, well, the behavioral health shakeup in 2012, you're thinking, darn, you haven't fixed that yet? You know what I mean? Because, these things have happened and they're in front of our faces and we see them, manifest right in Wells Park, right? We see it, right? And so, let me shut up. I'm talking too much.
You know what? Like I said, this is your show and we asked you on to give your opinion as a representative of APD Forward and of ACLU. It's something occurred to me that not every participant or attendee tonight may be aware of APD Forward and who you are and what you do in your role as APD Forward. And I know ACLU is a member of APD Forward. So if you could just give us a brief outline of what APD Forward is and what its mission is, that would be great.
Yeah, so around 20, I'm not sure if you all, whoever's been here, I know a couple people who introduced themselves and they just got here, but right around 2011, 2012, right? There was just an outrageous number of police shootings, right? Individuals threatening suicide, folks living with mental health issues, right? And I think don't quote me on this, but I was a newspaper reader, I was a reporter then, and I think out of 34 shootings in a 2-year period, 27 people died. Like I said, it's around those numbers. I may be off, but not far off. And so the ACLU and a few other community organizations lobbied the, first of all, we asked the Department of Justice to come here. So the DOJ came here and did a bunch of listening sessions, right? And then at the request of the city council, the DOJ came into the city and they launched a pattern and practice investigation. And after, approximately 2 years, in April 2014, they issued a findings letter that says that I think it's a very lengthy letter, but they found that Albuquerque Police Department had a pattern and practice of unconstitutional violations, constitutional violations resulting in death, right? And the maybe a few days after that letter, James Boyd was killed, right? Or maybe I got my I think I may get my times off, but anyway, right around that time, so APD 4 really sort of jumped into action and became a formal coalition made up of approximately 30 organizations or so, some dealing with folks living with mental health issues, people dealing with disability issues, housing insecurity issues, all came together. And our purpose was to make sure that the city was entering into an agreement that had teeth, some sort of teeth, right? And at the onset of this agreement, they wanted to be like an MOU where you're just gonna go do this, right? And the ACLU and this new formed coalition decided that we needed to have a consent decree, right? We need to have a consent decree, something that would really reform the police department. And so we've been a formal coalition since maybe July 2014, the same year James Boyd died, and that findings letter came about. And every 6 months, what we do is we analyze the 300-page monitor's report and just sort of try to decipher for the public, the community's voice in this process. And it's going on 7 years, and it'll probably be another 10 before we're out of it.
And like us, you're an amici group.
Yes,
Amici group of friends of the court. So we appeared before Judge Browning, who's the judge currently in charge of the process. To
we had to petition the court to be amici, to be a friend, to enter and to participate in the case as a friend of the court. We're not an intervener. We don't have any say in the hearing.
Right.
I think years past we tried to intervening status, but the judge quashed that. He just said, get out of here with that. And so, but we're really working, and I think our upcoming efforts will be sort of focused on reminding the community why this is important, right? You know what I mean? We understand policing is a difficult line of work, right? It's not easy. You're tasked with pulling sometimes undesirable people off the streets and stopping them from causing harm. But we want to make sure that it's done in a manner that protects people's civil rights and ensure everyone goes home at night, right? Because the provisions in the CASA, if they were followed, I think they're evidence-based that they not increase public safety, but they increase safety to everyone involved in the process. And that's why the rhetoric around the Court of Proof Settlement Agreement is lending to the crime issue is sort of maddening, and it dispels and it really pays scant attention to what has been identified as a epidemic, a fentanyl epidemic, a meth epidemic, right? No behavioral health, things like that.
Okay, super, thank you. I just want to say that anybody who wants to join our council You do have an in on the reports from APD about the progress of the amici. You do have an input into the statement that we make to Judge Browning. And you do also have the opportunity, so everybody can listen to the 8-hour hearing that takes place every 6 months. But I mean, it is 8 hours, but I promise you, it's really interesting. It really is. If you can find a way of listening without being hooked to a screen, it really is pretty cool.
And I'm going to drop an article in this, an article in the chat here that I think everyone should sort of read, because it does a much better job than I on explaining why, we should sort of, be a little bit more focused on who we arrest and why. And I think it's just a really good read. Nation magazine, and it's about Albuquerque. So we made a national magazine because of what goes on in our jail and why people are arrested.
Thank you. That would be fabulous to drop that in. The Nation. Wow. So I wish I'd had that article before we started this meeting. I'd be probably a bit better informed. I should have got my act together. I apologize.
You're great. You're great.
You're my Jiminy Cricket. Is there anything else? Any other questions from the attendees? Anything else? Transcripts. Oh, Elizabeth Martinez, transcripts. So.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I will send them around our group. Elizabeth Martinez from the Assistant U.S. Attorney sent around the transcript of the hearings in front of Judge Browning, and they're super interesting. And not only that, if you got the time, it's such an educational experience, right? To really get an understanding of why the process works and why it's so important for our community, our communities. And if I had one parting word, I would say, the court improvement settlement agreement is needed, right? It is really needed. The monitor who monitors that agreement has years of experience and has offered the city of Albuquerque tons of support and technical resources that have been proven in other arenas to reduce improve public safety altogether. And I think it's important that folks realize why that agreement is in place and why it's needed. Although the shootings aren't as prevalent and today as they were 10 years ago, it's still very much needed in our community.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We also do receive copies of the transcripts from Elizabeth Martinez, and we can send them to anybody who wants to. We can send the copy to anybody who wants it. Just email us at cpavalley@gmail.com, and we can send them out to you. And the Monitor's report, the IMR, happens every 6 months, and it's long, but it's a very worthwhile read. And if you want to be on a list to receive it, let me know. I can let Elizabeth Martinez know, or I can send it around also. So just let us know. The next AMR is due when?
July, I think.
July.
But you also can you can go to the APD4's website, and I'll drop that in the chat, and you can look at a summary of it. We provide a public summary just to down and save folks from having to thumb through 200 pages. I do think that the monitoring reports are a good way to gain a serious understanding of policing current, and it also can teach us about policing past here in the state. In the city.
I know. It's a great summary. It's a really good summary. So thank you so much, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here, and thank you, Commander Norris, for interjecting and helping me understand what I was trying to say. Thank you, both of you, for helping me understand what I was trying to say. And thank you, Dick, very much for helping me understand what I was trying to say. I know that I had a good cause. I know that I had a good reason. It was the cause, my soul, the cause, but I just hadn't quite articulated it as well as I should have. But I think it's worth all of us keeping in mind how the system works, how we can help improve it, what we can do what we can personally do, what kind of changes we can make, and how we can support each other as a community, how we can support the police when they need it or when we want to, and sometimes we have to confront the police and we need to ask them questions about things that are being done. We need clarification for things that are going on. And in order to have a stronger voice, get involved. Get involved with us. I mean, we have unique pathways to APD, and we can access APD Forward. We can access all kinds of places. We can invite any speaker you want, any kind of topic you want to hear about. We can do that. We are able to do that for you. And our main goal as a council is to ensure that the relationships, that the police behave with decency and courtesy and kindness to the community, and that we help support that, and that we advocate community policing once they get a really proper definition. Constitutional community policing. So please bear that in mind. Please get on our webpage and submit a statement of interest if you might be interested in joining. Please spread the word about our meetings. Please, if you'd like to be on our mailing list, email the email address, it's in the chat. And thank you so much. And I will receive the emails of people that have attended the meeting tonight, and I will add your names to the email, to our email list. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thanks everyone for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. And this is the section where we talk about community issues and concerns and police, getting basic police report. So Commander Norris, do you have anything specific that you want to bring up?
No, nothing specific. Just here to answer questions, but no, nothing specific right now. Relative to anything new we have going on in the Valley, we're just kind of, we just had the new bid start, so we do have, a crop of new officers that are working in the Valley, crop of new lieutenants and sergeants. One is actually on right now. Her name's Deanne Otzenberger. She's my district lieutenant. Yeah. So, and just, trying to get everybody, the new personnel up to speed on what goals we're trying to accomplish within the Valley Area Command.
Now, the bid process is a year. You can bid and stay in the same place for longer, but basically you can move from place to place each year, right?
Yes, this one they did a this one was 6 months, this past bid, because we needed to kind of reorganize our coverage and take our shifts from 5 8-hour shifts to 12-hour shifs. So we're seeing some benefits in that. I think that has its pros and its cons, just like anything else. But we're only 2 weeks into it, so we're going to kind of check it out and see how that works in terms of how many officers we have logged on and overlapping shifts to make sure that we're trying to get to those calls as expediently as possible, and then with those low calls holding for service, increasing our proactivity.
Okay, 12 hours. So does that make a difference to the number of personnel that you need, or does it just provide better coverage? Or
what it does is it provides better coverage for the overlapping shifts that we have. So we have more officers on at our peak times during the day to answer those calls for service.
And again, numbers wise, how many do you have on graveyard? I know I harp on about that, but is it as many as 5 officers or less for graveyard? 10, 12?
For the entire watch, or just at one time?
For the graveyard shift, how many do you have on?
So for the entire time, let me see. We have 4 graveyard teams that are outfitted with between 5 and 8 officers.
Okay.
So give me a second. I can pull up the exact number for you right now. Let me pull up a lineup, and you guys, talk amongst yourselves.
Rowan, while he's looking that up, would you like me to give you the property crimes?
go for it. And just want to point out that we do property crime because that's of the most interest to people in the community. If you want specific information about other crimes that are going on in the Valley Area Command, let Laura know. She can look it up for you. Let me know. I can let Laura know. Does that sound right, Laura, that the property crimes are the priority for your report?
Yes, we usually give the property crimes at all the meetings that we attend. And if people do want other stuff, go ahead and feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat, but it's ljtrujillo@cabq.gov. And for this month, the property crimes for the whole Valley Area Command from 1/21/22 to 2/21/22. There were 28 commercial burglaries, 16 residential burglaries, 27 vehicle burglaries, 68 auto thefts, 41 recovered vehicles, 1 robbery by carjacking, 4 robberies commercial, 3 robbery by gunpoint, and 2 robberies that were residential. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Did you get the difference between robbery and burglary?
I'll go ahead and speak to that. Real quick, 28 officers for our graveyard shift. We actually just have one. He's actually going to homicide right now. So that's how many bid for graveyards.
Okay.
Now, that's not including, officers that may be on military orders, that may be on FMA. So, but as far as officers that we had bid for our graveyard, it was 28 officers. Robbery and burglary. So that's actually a really good question, because I think there's a lot of confusion with that. When people say my house got robbed, your house didn't get robbed. Your house got burglarized. Robbing is when you take something from somebody by force. Burglary, you can rob a person, you can't rob a structure. You burglarize a structure, you rob a person. So burglary is unlawfully entering, say, a house with the intent to commit a felony therein. That would be burglary. So somebody breaks into your house and steals something, that's a burglary. Somebody breaks into your car and steals something, that's a burglary. Somebody breaks into a commercial building and steals something, that's a burglary. If I break into your house, point a gun at you, and take your belongings, you actually have several charges there. You have aggravated burglary and you have armed robbery. So when somebody does a store holdup, that would be a robbery. So that's the difference between a burglary and a robbery.
Okay. I was just intrigued because is it just me, Laura? The stats sound higher than they were last month. Are they higher? Laura?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just wondering, some of the numbers sounded a lot higher. Some of the order thefts, some of the commercial burglaries, stuff like that sounded higher.
Actually, the commercial burglaries are lower this month. Last month, they were 44. This month, there were 28. The residential burglaries stayed the same at 16. The vehicle burglaries did go up. This month, they were 27. Last month, there were 21. The auto thefts went up by 1. This month, they were 68. Last month, they were 69. The recovered vehicles went up. This month, we recovered 41. Last month, there were 37. The commercial burglaries actually went down. This month, there were 4. Last month, there were 14. And the robbery by gunpoint went up by 1. This month, there were 3. And last month, there were 2.
Okay, there's a question in the chat. Yes, Mr. Eck, Mr. or Ms. Eckert, the question about, oh, okay, we've got the answer about the graveyard shift. I asked about graveyard because that's the quietest time of night. I very naively think that's when property crimes, or I don't know what it is about graveyard. I think more happens on graveyard. So I was asked about how many officers there are, but I'm probably wrong. There's probably a lot more happens on other shifts. What's the busiest shift crime-wise? If that's,
Actually, day shifts are busiest shifts.
yeah.
Yeah, day shifts are busiest shift. And the reason for that is we have to understand that, not only are we trying to serve the people who live in the Valley area community, we're trying to serve the people who work there as well. So, the Valley Area Command swells in population during the day because of people who may not live in the area command, but come down and work in the area command. So that's naturally going to generate more calls for service.
Okay, and then Phil, you wanted to ask Laura to describe the thing she does as crime prevention specialist. So Laura, go for it.
Okay, as a crime prevention specialist, I have many duties that I do. I can do presentations for the public on anything from personal safety to bullying, from scams to auto theft prevention. I also can do CEPTEDs, which are security surveys on a home or a business. We'll go out and look at the property and then look for vulnerabilities. And then I will type up a report with recommendations on how to try to deter crime. We also help set up neighborhood watch program. We will go out and have a meeting with you and your neighbors, and we will communicate throughout the year with that. I'll be the liaison between the block captain and the police department for them. I attend all the Valley meetings, and I give the property crimes there and answer any questions or concerns that the community has, along with the officers. I assist the lieutenant and the commander with anything they require during the workday. I assist the other crime prevention specialists on their CEPTEDs, presentations, meetings, etc. There's just a whole realm of duties that I do. I'll provide the public with McGruff, the crime fighting dog, if they request that. I will attend events and set up a table with promotional items and pamphlets, informational pamphlets. I have meetings with the public when they do come into the substation and they're asking questions about pamphlets, safety, meeting with the commander, lieutenants, anything like that. So if you need anything, again, I will put my email in the chat. Just get a hold of me. If I can't help you out with it, I will direct you to the person who can. Are there any other questions?
I don't think so. I'd like to pitch in for Neighborhood Watch that I have seen people on Nextdoor say that they want to see a stronger Nextdoor Neighborhood Watch presence in their area, but you have to be the one to get the package, to fill out the package, to coordinate the meeting. It's just I try and follow up with people and they never get back to me. It's a really worthwhile thing to do, and as you do have a lot of available support. Edwina and I always say that we serve as sort of non-official neighborhood watch people for our neighborhoods, and actually one of the other CPCs put that up as a recommendation that the CPC members be kind of de facto neighborhood watch, and that's what I do for my neighborhood anyway. And beyond, anybody that has any questions or concerns or anything they want me to address to APD, I do. Which, if you do have questions or concerns, you can email Commander Norris, but Commander Norris gets an avalanche of emails. So sometimes it's difficult for him to respond to them. But there's a lot of kind of things that come up in the neighborhood that you can, I mean, Commander Norris is always very responsive. If you have a question, Commander Norris, I have contacted him and he's always answered the question. Wow. It sounds like a dolphin.
Edwina, we hear you.
And Rowan, I just wanted to throw in, you can also email me with any issues or concerns, and I can pass that up to my chain of
Right,
command.
of course. That's probably better, actually. Is there anything else? There's still half an hour to go in the meeting, but to adjourn early can't be a terrible thing. So if anybody else has anything they'd like to bring up.
I just wanted to say one other thing about the neighborhood watch. I do get contacted when issues are happening in the neighborhood where they want to start the neighborhood watch. I send them out the starter packet and then I contact them and then I never hear back again from them.
Right.
It does help to deter crime from the neighborhood. And if anybody's interested, I do have a video that I can send you where a criminal actually talks about his experience with the neighborhood watch and how it did deter him from committing crimes in that neighborhood. So just email me if you want that video and I can send it to you.
Well, that would be a good thing for us to send out to our mailing list, I think. So that could be worthwhile. Or we can put it on Nextdoor. I know you don't post on Nextdoor, right, Laura? So we can put that up on Nextdoor, right?
Correct.
Okay, we can do that. That's probably a good plan.
Will you just send me a reminder email to send that video to you?
I will.
Thank you.
And then the last thing that I started work on next month's topic. I was going to try and contact DA Torres to maybe come and speak about the revolving door, because they seem to couple in with our topic tonight about arrests. But I'm not sure how to go about contacting him, so I can work on that. But we're going to meet and discuss our topic for next month. Any of you have any suggestions, anything you want to hear, anybody you want to see, anybody, please let us know. We can make it happen. We do make it happen. So anything that you want to know, anybody that you want to see. And with that, I think if there's nothing else, then we stand adjourned.
I have a question
Good.
question for Laura. What she said about having that video, is that a file? Is that something you can just email out, or is it on a disc, or what format?
It's actually on YouTube and I can send you the link.
Okay. Yeah, I would
Okay.
like. Mhm.
Okay.
So I can send that out to you if you put your email in the chat for me. I'll be happy to do that for you tomorrow.
Okay, great.
So, all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. I hope it was an important topic. I do apologize if it seems somewhat garbled at times. I think Mr. Jones had some very useful and important things to say. And thank you very much. Yes, I think he did. Thank you very much for participating tonight. And please, I can't say this enough. Please let us know what you would like us to address at our next month's meeting, at any meeting. We can make it happen. And additionally, please consider being a council member. We have 4 openings right now.
Okay.
So thank you. Good night.
This evening, everyone.
Good night.
All right.
Thanks, Kelly.
You're welcome, Philip. Thank you.